Lane Kiffin and the Rebels will travel to Georgia to play in one of the SEC's biggest games this year. In their transfer portal, it's going to be a big reason why they're in this game.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into this crossover edition of Locked On the Portal and Locked On Ole Miss. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making both Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On the Portal a part of your day each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. We're going to be talking all things Ole Miss in Georgia today. But to lead into it, it's the key, really, for Ole Miss's roster and their success. It's the transfer portal. Throughout the show, several players, including Trinidad Chambliss, the quarterback for the Rebels that's taking college football by storm. We're going to be discussing that, how this game and Ole Miss's season has impacted recruiting, and then just the ins and outs of the game between Ole Miss and the Georgia Bulldogs. Mr. Stephen Willis, Locked On Ole Miss, joins me as always. How you doing today, Stephen?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. Game of the week this week in Athens, Georgia, between Ole Miss and the Georgia Bulldogs. Ole Miss gets to play the underdog card. Ole Miss versus the world, all of that stuff. Everything is set up for this weekend to be a pretty special weekend. And the best part of it, if you lose, it doesn't really matter because it doesn't hurt you. If you win, you've kind of turned that last corner that you were hoping to get around. So it's kind of win-win this weekend.
Yeah, I think that if they win this game, it would be pretty hard not to make the playoff at that point. Winning at Georgia, obviously, is about as hard as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, Kiffin, he's a big game coach in some ways. In other ways, maybe not. But I don't know if he's ever had somebody quite like Trinidad. I don't think the spotlight really bothers him that much, Stephen. And that's a great story because he came from Ferris State, if I remember correctly. So that's awesome within itself. And that leads me into my first question. I've got 9 players myself that I've got on my sheet over here that are transfers to the Ole Miss Rebels. And if you take nothing else, for those of you listen to this, note the following. Ole Miss, yeah, they take a lot of transfers, but a lot of them really hit. I don't know what it is that Wayne does, and that's what I'm going to ask Stephen right now. Why does Ole Miss hit on the portal so much, and probably more than most programs?
Because their player personnel department that they have that is constantly looking for players. Now, most schools have that. That's not a new thing about that. But Ole Miss has a checklist that they evaluate on everybody they look at. And the number one thing on that list, if you ask Pete Golding, is they love football. That is something that they cannot live without. And that makes the other stuff, the size speed ratio and all the things that would make them good prospects, that's the reason they have a better hit rate, because the person that's doing it just loves the game and is willing to sell out. So if they come to Ole Miss in this situation, you're going to have like Wydett Williams, who started out at Division II Delta State, by the way, before he went to Louisiana Monroe. So there's a D2 player on the defensive side of the ball, and then there's a D2 player at quarterback in Trinidad Chambliss. Whenever they broke those players down and saw what was going, they didn't pay attention to what was going on with who they were playing. They weren't paying attention to any stuff like that. They were like, okay, this guy loves the game. He absolutely loves what he's doing. He's 6'2". He's 210 pounds, so he has the size that we're looking for. Oh, he runs a 4.5 40. That's the speed that we're looking for. And if he loves the game and he really wants to do the best that he can do, and he has the ability to do it with all the tools in the toolbox, you're going to have a pretty high success rate. But you're right. Ole Miss is connecting and hitting on these transfers at a higher rate than a lot of these schools are, including one of the schools that you cover, honestly, in Tallahassee. Last year, a lot of their problem was out of misidentifying transfers. And
absolutely.
Listen, Brian, in this transfer portal era, you're going to have volatility. The ebbs and the flows and the ups and downs of the transfer portal, it's going to happen. So Ole Miss being able to do this, that is something worth talking about, and is props to everybody in their player personnel department. And honestly, Pete Golding and Lane Kiffin. They do a fantastic job of roster building, and they're early adopters on this transfer portal stuff. So everybody that's just learning to do it now, Lane's already been using it for 3 years. So he kind of learned.
Wydett Williams is one of the kids you mentioned. 25 tackles this year, tackle for loss. He's got a pick, 4 pass breakups. And like you said, he's a kid that didn't even start out at the Division I level. Then you got Trinidad Chambliss. I mean, he's, in my opinion, should be in the Heisman race. He's 8-5 of 130, 65.4%, 1,286 yards, 7 TDs, 1 interception, 9.9 yards per attempt. And as a runner, 281 yards, 3 scores. And that, those numbers in college, for those that don't know, rushing stats, they're impacted by sacks. Those are just 2 of 9 guys that I have. It's like every position. Kewan Lace, best running back. They got him transfer over from Missouri. He's a stud. They got him. He's originally from the Dallas area. I think that this group has meshed well. That's always the question. Like you said, you're going to have some volatility. There's no debate about that. So good for Ole Miss for figuring it out. And I think that sometimes it's just about desire. Your point about them looking for guys that can't live without football, it's legit. A lot of teams take kids just based on talent, and sure, that can hit. But if they don't want to maximize it, it doesn't really matter. You're not a 5-star if you don't have effort.
They evaluated 3 running backs for this transfer portal cycle. They ended up getting Kewan Lacey, who is the second leader in the rusher in the SEC. Do you know who the other 2 were?
Ahmad Hardy would be
Ahmad Hardy, number 1, and Fluff Bothwell.
Okay, well, they did pretty good.
So 3 out of the top 5 in rushing were transfer portal targets by Ole Miss. That's what the personnel department kind of dug up at the running back position. So, yeah, they're doing all right.
That's the key, man. Like if you look at the NFL draft in the early 90s when the Cowboys won, et cetera, got a bunch of those picks in the Herschel Walker trade, you still got to maximize it. Just because you got more scholarships, this new rule doesn't mean you're going to use them right. Ole Miss has done that. Let's talk about somebody else, by the way. This is hilarious to me. Harrison Wallace was at Penn State, and obviously the forward pass has been taken away from Happy Valley, apparently, because this year he's got 17 catches for 361 yards and 2 scores. He's averaging 21.2 yards per catch. He didn't even have a catch in the game against Notre Dame. Now, part of that, Notre Dame's got pretty good defense, but Penn State couldn't get him the ball one time in the whole game. I mean, they didn't have a receiver make a catch in that game. It's amazing what coaching and scheme can do. But we knew Harrison could run.
And quarterbacks too.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, everybody likes to prop up Drew Aller because of his traits. He can throw a laser rocket arm, his running ability, his height, his weight, all of this stuff that you would love in the combine. But every time they play a good team, they can't get the ball to the wide receivers, period. In the game they played against Ole Miss, they could not complete a pass to the wide receiver. You know who had the first touchdown pass for Penn State against Ole Miss in that game? It was Bo Tribula.
Oh, gosh, the guy that transferred over to Mizzou.
Yeah, he came in and played a series and threw a touchdown pass, ended up going to Mizzou. They stuck with Drew Aller. It ended up costing James Franklin his job at Penn State. But it was just over, hey, this is going to be the good guys. We just have to get the right guys around him. When you look at that roster, that was a national championship roster in every position except quarterback. Quarterback was the weak link of that team. When you have Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen in the backfield, and all of a sudden, it's a mess. And they got rid of James Franklin. Fine. By the way, James Franklin at Florida would be one of the most scary things ever. Everybody's going to make jokes about winning big games, but that is somebody that knows how to recruit and knows
that would be
what he's
scary.
doing.
That would be scary.
And listen to this. All the rumors going around the internet right now about Billy Napier, possibly this week, possibly not, and all of this on the week that James Franklin got let go, that's hard for me to believe that's a coincidence.
It's possible. I'm sure that his agent has at least spoken with somebody at Florida in some capacity, on or off the record, whatever. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Ole Miss's recruiting, how this season's going to impact it, and then we're absolutely going to get into the Ole Miss versus Georgia game. That is next here on this crossover edition. Today's show is brought to you by SupplyHouse. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, Get your crew moving forward with SupplyHouse. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands across the industry. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Listen, we've all been there before where you need a part right away. It could be for your car or anything else. But if your job replies and finds out, hey, we need something right now, you got to get it. SupplyHouse can do that for you next day delivery. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. We're also brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future with fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move. Whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors, this training is reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs, with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach your peak performance. So whether you're on the ground or whether you're standing up or whatever you're doing, they also have the swivel screen. It's going to help you stay right into your workout, be completely locked in, and it's a game changer. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Thank you once again for making this crossover edition of Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On the Portal a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Brian Smith, joined by Stephen Willis from Locked On Ole Miss. Stephen, real quick, I know this isn't the most prime time for recruiting information, but outside of waiting for Auburn to implode, which means Jace Matthews and some other guys could end up at Ole Miss, that's obvious. Is there anything that you're curious about on the recruiting front or anything we need to hit on? They've got some home games coming up. Is there any big weekend for the Rebels on the recruiting front?
I would imagine the South Carolina game will be a big recruiting weekend because that's the Realtree game where they wear the special helmets, their camouflage and all that. This year, kind of a white gray helmet with the gray face mask. It looks pretty good. Could wear it with either a red jersey or a navy jersey. I'm sure they're going to blow that out in recruiting. And if Ole Miss can win against either Georgia or Oklahoma, just get one of these games and have South Carolina, that third game, that big thing, they will blow that weekend out. And then their Citadel fine, that they're not going to blow that out. But then there's the Florida Gators, which anytime you can beat the orange and blue, which Ole Miss should be favored to do in that situation, you take it and you're going to blow that out so everybody can see what's going on. Maybe they try and get some Florida people that have interest into Oxford, Mississippi, so they can see that happening as well. But those are the two big opportunities left with signing day approaching.
Gotcha. Let's talk a little bit about Ole Miss at Georgia. There's so many different angles from this. My first question for you, because I think Trinidad will play pretty well. Again, as I opened in the show, he seems to be a pretty even keel guy. He's a senior. I know he's first year playing Division I, but he's a little different. And the LSU game showed me that because he didn't start very good in that, but after he got his feet wet, he trended in the right direction. This last week, the whole team was sleepwalking against Washington State. I'm not real worried about that. He'll be focused on Georgia. Which other players are you most curious about on offense for Ole Miss to get going? I mean, obviously Georgia's talented. They don't have the same pass rush they normally do, but it's pretty mitigated, to be honest. They don't really have a true pass rusher. Which players for Ole Miss are you looking for?
I think three players offensively will have my attention outside of the quarterback. One is Daquan Wright. I think Daquan Wright is probably the best player on Ole Miss's offense. He's a tight end that he's just kind of an alien. He's a tight end that's averaging 23 yards per catch this season. And he's making plays run after catch. It isn't him throwing it downfield to him. He's a guy that has the athleticism to kind of turn it on. But also you're going to have Caden Lee and you're going to have Kewan Lacey, because what you saw last year in the Ole Miss Georgia game was Ole Miss attacking the linebackers in the pass game for the Georgia Bulldogs. And so Daquan and Caden Lee and Kewan Lacey, you can bet that Lane Kiffin has a way to get those linebackers moved around so they can't blitz. They're really good at getting after you at quarterback. So if it's in the pass game where they have to worry about it, maybe it buys you a half a second. That frees up Trinidad. And also on the outside, I don't know which wide receiver, maybe Deuce Alexander, maybe Trey Wallace, maybe Deshaun Stribling. Against Tennessee, Georgia corners had difficulty stopping deep balls, just kind of jump balls in that game. And that's three players that can absolutely go up and get it. So it's going to be interesting. This is not your typical Georgia team. They struggle to get after the quarterback, and then you look at it, they struggle getting off the field on third down. It's very not Georgia-like, especially in the first half. I think offensively, Ole Miss has some weapons in place to take advantage of what Georgia does. Now, the question is will there be turnovers? Will there be short fields for the Georgia Bulldogs and Gunnar Stockton to take advantage of? It will be interesting to see. But if Ole Miss plays clean and kind of can take advantage of that stuff, they're kind of sitting pretty between the hedges.
I think it'll be a pretty interesting matchup. You talked a little bit about Daquan. He's a very gifted young man. I'm curious to see. I mean, Georgia's got tons of talent at linebacker. It's insane. But they're still better going downhill than they are covering, because no linebacker is good at covering, in my opinion. There's like two of those guys on the planet, maybe. I would attack there too in every game, but especially against Georgia, because you're not going to run the ball on them consistently. That's not a news flash. But if you can start throwing on them and stuff and getting them thinking, then you might be able to gash them a little bit with Kewan, because that's not a very fun guy to bring down. He's a load. And I think he's got pretty good feet too. I'm curious to see what they do in the first drive or two that they have the ball. Are they really going to throw it much? Or are they just going to RPO it? What are they going to do? Because Lane always has a little something special for, the Alabamas, Florida's, teams like that. And Georgia obviously fits that to a T. But if they can score early, I think especially after last week, let's be honest, Georgia was handed a few gifts in the Auburn game. I think that's a fairly safe assumption. This isn't your daddy's Georgia from 3-4 years ago.
No.
They're not as deep as they used to be. And they lost Damon Wilson, who's now at Missouri, who is by far their best pass rusher. He at one point this year, he had more per Pro Football Focus, more pressures than the Georgia D-line combined. So they lost him. So they can't get after the quarterback like they used to. They're just massive. Pushing them off the line is not very much fun. But I think that Trinidad's going to have an opportunity to throw it around a little bit. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Caden Lee's my guy. I've known him since he was playing for Cam Newton's 7-on-7 team. I think he's going to be a really key part of this, especially on third down. Just want to make that prediction. But anything else you want to add on the offense?
Interesting. I had Gary Patterson on my show a little bit earlier this week, and he talked about how you get after that Kirby Smart, Nick Saban style defense and what they do. You can't run the pin and pull stuff. You can't run the slow developing counter plays. It has to be snap the ball, get the ball, and go. So you're going to see dives. You're going to see traps. You're going to see very quick hitting stuff. And if Ole Miss can do that, Kewan Lacey's a load. He's probably one of those games that he's going to have 25 carries for 85 yards or something like that. But if you can run the ball just enough to keep them honest, offensively, you're going to be able to throw the ball down the field. If the linebackers are preoccupied, the play action is going to work a little bit better. All of that stuff and everything that everybody has said about play action football is true, but you have to make them respect the run game. If you can do that, you can get after.
Yeah, I think that's a very big part of it. I really do, because if you look at the opportunities, if they can just get like one or two big runs, they don't have to hit an 80-yarder, but if they can get a couple of 15, 20-yard runs to keep UGA honest, like you said, that's when play action becomes a very big part of your game. So I agree with you. When we come back, we're going to talk about the other side of the ball. What do the Rebels have to do to slow down Georgia? That is next here on this crossover. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. If you want to bet on Josh Allen winning MVP, the Bills going to the Super Bowl, or anything else, player props, parlays, or anything that you could possibly think of, FanDuel's got you covered. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and to get started. We are also brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. And you can also make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, let's talk about the Rebels on defense. Stephen, I think it's pretty interesting that Ole Miss's defense has started to play better and better now that they've gotten Beavers and some of these other guys, in-state guys, Cam Franklin, etc., Miller, and they've had so many good players. But getting some more of those linemen, especially, to stay home, I think is the difference. Which guy do you think up front needs to have the biggest game, or is it just collectively run gap fits, etc.?
I think Cam Franklin, he had a sack and a half against Washington State. And for the better part of this season, Ole Miss only had 5 sacks through 5 games. They had 3.5 against Washington State. And Washington State has done a pretty good job of pass blocking this season. Cam Franklin had a sack and a half. That was the first sack and a half that he has had in an Ole Miss uniform. And he is kind of joining with Will Eccles to be this side of the defensive line that is really difficult to contend with. Take a Xavier Harris and those guys on the other side. This defensive line and this front seven, Ole Miss is going to go as far as they take Ole Miss. If you look at them growing up as quickly as they are, this is a huge game for the Ole Miss Rebels because Georgia is going to run the football. They are going to come downhill. They are going to get physical. They are going to try and make sure they run the ball and that they stop the run in this game. You have to be able to stop the run and run the ball as well. The team that is able to do that is going to win this football game. I mean, Brian, if it ends up 31-10 Georgia wins or 31-10 Ole Miss wins, that doesn't surprise me. But it also doesn't surprise me if it's 24-21 and you're going down in the fourth quarter for all kinds of weirdness. I think Ole Miss has a chance to be pretty good. Everybody's going to look at Ole Miss's rushing statistics and say, well, they're giving up 150 yards a game or something like that. That doesn't necessarily tell the whole story because for 90 to 95% of the game, they're only giving up 2 to 3 yards per carry, something like that. And then an explosive will happen. And that will cause the statistics to get skewed a little bit. This is probably a team that's realistically only given up about 120 yards per game, but because of the explosive early against Georgia State and against Arkansas and that, the stats kind of got skewed. This team can be very good against the run when they're locked in. They have the players to do it. Remember, this Xavier Harris was a defensive lineman that came over to Athens, Georgia in 2023, and Georgia 50-burgered him. So he is remembering that. He remembered what that game looked like. And so I imagine this has been a fairly intense week of practice, honestly.
I would imagine so. And for those of you that are on YouTube, you can see the screen. I've got Georgia's rushing stats up. For those of you that are listening on Apple, Spotify, Podbean, and everywhere else, here are a couple of notes. Redshirt freshman Chauncey Bowens is a load. He's like 235 pounds or something like that. 60 carries, 315 yards. He's averaging 5.25 per carry, 4 scores. Nate Frazier, sophomore running back, 60 carries, 277 yards, 4.62 yards per tote. He's got a couple of scores. And Gunnar Stockton is a pretty apt runner. 48 carries for 220. And keep in mind, sacks count against quarterbacks. So he would be over 5 yards a carry. He's got 6 touchdowns. He leads the Dogs. So they've got a 3-headed monster in that. And they also use Josh McCray, the kid that transferred from Illinois. He's another big kid, like 240. He's got 27 carries for 74 yards. You're like, oh, that's really low. Yeah, but he's in short yardage. Goal line, you'll probably see Josh quite a bit. They'll use Dylan Bell occasionally. Bo Walker might get a carry, but I doubt it. Bottom line, if Ole Miss is going to win this game, they've got to find a way to kind of not just take away that. I don't think that's a fair statement. They're not going to completely shut down Georgia's run game, but they got to slow it down enough. And this isn't a great line. Like, they've just been banged up beyond belief. At one point, I don't know what it'll be this weekend, their right guard and right tackle were both true freshmen. That is never a good recipe in the Southeastern Conference. And I'm fully aware how well UGA recruits up front. But
you still don't want true freshmen.
No, it's just the mental part. Like, one false step, literally, because of technique, or just making the wrong decision on who I have it. You could have one play where you get a tackle for loss because of an error and your drive is busted. You're in 2nd down and 15. That's rough. So I'm curious to see, A, who plays for Georgia, because they've had such a mass unit on the right side of their line, and B, just as importantly, how does Ole Miss attack that? If it is like Bo Ewing's like a 3rd-year player, okay, if he's out there. But if either one of those freshmen are out there playing, I'm sure they're going to try to play some line games, put some Tarian Perkins out there, try to get some one-on-one situations, because I would. I mean, you've got to make them beat you with those guys going against your best. And to be honest, Ole Miss has one of the better D-lines in the league, and it's still fairly young. Like, almost all those guys are underclassmen, Perkins included, to be honest. But I think you're going to see some stunts and whatnot, and I wouldn't be surprised if they had a chance to get a couple of plays blown up because of Georgia's iffy situation. Here's my last question for you. Gunnar Stockton's been a little better than I thought he would be, to be honest, especially running the ball. He's pretty good at it. Do you think he's a very good passer, or is he okay? Like, it's hard to read because their offense is still pretty conservative. They got a lot of speed at receiver. I don't know if they've got a bunch of great players. What is your take on Gunnar, and how do you think Ole Miss approaches that in relation to stopping the run?
I think they should completely sell out to stop the run. And if Gunnar Stockton beats you in a home game in Athens, Georgia, you live with it. You don't want to get beat by the running game, because that's the threat with Georgia, is them running the ball down your throat, and then play action pass gets started, and all of a sudden that happens. Make Gunnar Stockton throw the ball down the field. Try and get them into some 2nd and 8, some 3rd and 10s, and all of that, and try to confuse the young quarterback as best you can. If you can do that, you'll be all right. But he's a really good player. A lot of people don't realize that he was a 5-star coming out of high school. I mean, he set records in the state of Georgia, but we're not saying he's a bad player. It's just kind of a Sophie's choice right now. Do you want to deal with the run game, or do you want to deal with Gunnar Stockton? And it's like, this point, Gunnar Stockton is probably the choice.
My bigger concern with him is him on scrambles. You cannot lose contain on Gunnar. He's not the most shifty guy, but he's built like a tank. Like, he's 6 foot and he's 220 pounds. He'll run over somebody, which I don't advise for quarterbacks to try to do. He plays more like a linebacker than a quarterback. Yeah. If you've ever met Gunnar, he's a great kid. That's just who he is. He grew up on a farm. He's that guy from North Georgia, grew up on a farm. So he knows hard work. But I think that the RPO game, if Ole Miss wins, they're going to have to contain him in that. And then just, again, 3rd and 8, you can't allow him to go get those 8 yards, make a linebacker miss. You got to get him to the dirt before he gets to the sticks. If they go for it on 4th and get it, so be it. He cannot pick up 3rd down and long with his legs. I think that will be a key to the game. Anything else you'd like to add on this, Stephen?
Oh, just the game of the week. If Ole Miss can win the game against the Georgia Bulldogs, that is kind of the turning point of the last corner of them to make before national relevance. We always talk about the Clemson-like ascendancy of Ole Miss, and this win, if Ole Miss won that, I mean, you can start talking Atlanta, everything else, playoff, the whole 9 yards for Ole Miss football. So this is a huge game for Ole Miss, but there's just no downside for Ole Miss.
Yeah, I think this will be a great game. I'm really looking forward to seeing it play out. And I'm happy for Trinidad Chambliss, not just because I like the underdog, but I think the match between him and Georgia's defensive staff is fantastic. How they try to handle him, that'll be a blast to watch. So I think it's going to be a great game. Stephen, tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
All right, you can see it on the Locked On Ole Miss YouTube channel. We are on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. We put out a ton of episodes about dang near everything. Former players like John Forcade and Bill Flowers and Todd Wade and Chris Mangum. Those guys have been on the show. We try to make it the most fun place to follow Ole Miss sports, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of that. It's pretty good. You can also catch us on the Twitters at the address that's down below, or at the Stephen Willis. We'll be glad to have you.
Absolutely. You can find the Portal Podcast wherever you get your pods, Spotify, Apple, Podbean, and of course, like Stephen said, on YouTube. We will see you again soon.